Please also select the speaker's view from the right top corner just to get a better vision of everything. And please stay muted as I will start welcoming our speakers soon. So this is tonight's event program, and I just will jump into it and start with our first speaker, who is from the Young Humanists UK, and his name is Alavari Jeevathol. He's been very much involved with environmental issues, and he is very passionate about this high topic, and he will be talking about humanism and our cosmic responsibility to Earth. Hi, AJ.
Hi, Eda, and thanks very much for that introduction, and thanks also to all of the organisers and all involved for this event tonight. So I'm here to talk to you from Young Humanists, which is a part of Humanists UK, about the humanist stance in relation to the themes for tonight, which are broadly going to be the environment, faith and belief, and how we can be best placed to make a positive change. So maybe a bit about humanism just to start off with. I only have a few minutes, but I'll be welcome to expand on some of these ideas in the discussion later. So humanism is a worldview, is a belief system. It's not a faith as such. If we define faith as requiring belief in something without evidence, humanism is very much about evidence, and it's about the scientific understanding of the world. And it also places quite a lot of importance on human morality and human authority as well, as being the best guides to teach us and to guide us as our species and our civilization tries to explore its future. And the youth aspect of it is quite interesting as well, because humanists are mostly atheists and agnostics. And if we look at the latest British social attitude survey in the UK, around 53% of people identify as not having any faith or structured religious faith relevant in their day-to-day lives. And that number is a bit increased, around 70% for under 30s. So we at Humanists UK really do try and see that as an opportunity to both educate people about what humanism is and see if they might find an ideology and a belief system that would suit them within that. So that's a bit about humanism. So now the environment, what do we mean by, I'm sure we'll have lots of ideas that will come along later in the discussion, but it's essentially the environment around us, the space around us. We're part of our environment as well, and obviously humans aren't naive or neutral actors. We change our environment, but it's our biophysical, ecological surroundings that gives us nutrition, that gives us psychological support as well. We've seen during the pandemic how important it's been if you are lacking green spaces and direct contact with the environment, even to be able to see green spaces outside of your window rather than a brick wall. So in many ways, our environment supports us. And I guess the title of my remarks, I put in the cosmic responsibility and the cosmic opportunity of our environment, because that kind of fits in with the humanist belief of how, and what science tells us is how unique Earth is and how humans are part of the natural world. And being part of a natural world, we see amongst us our cousins, our brothers, essentially, and sisters on the family tree and the tree of life more generally. We have a responsibility as sentient, conscious, and highly evolved beings to provide for not only ourselves, but humanists would also say to other flora and fauna in the world, plants and animals and so on, because they're also life forms. They may not be conscious as far as we know, many of them, but we still have that responsibility. And if that ties in with some sort of very traditional indigenous attitudes as well that you may be also aware of in some parts of the world, that talk about the rights of Mother Earth and of Earth and the natural world itself being a being that needs sort of a Gaia kind of concept that needs rights. And humanism is right there alongside that as a modern holistic worldview that incorporates all of these very traditional and conservative ideas that unfortunately maybe our economic system currently isn't reflecting very much as we destroy our environments. So what are humanists doing about this, and how do they enact this belief that they have? How do they make a positive change in the world? So Humanist Climate Action, which I'd encourage you to search online, a project of Humanists UK that young humanists are also trying to support. Humanist Climate Action has launched recently, which focuses particularly on the climate, but that's part of the larger environmental debate there, to encourage campaigning and raising awareness about how carbon neutral and greenhouse effect reducing lifestyles are incredibly important and vital for, especially for the younger generations. We see with Greta Thunberg spearheading that, and others who are below 30, below 25, because ultimately it's going to be our future, whereas the older generations, maybe for them, unfortunately, it's, even though it's, sorry to say this, but may not be at the top of their list of priorities. So I hope this has given you a very brief sketch about what humanism is, why the understanding of our solar system and our planet as being a unique kind of spaceship of Earth with its own life support systems, with its very unique Goldilocks kind of atmosphere. It gives us responsibility and an awareness of that, of our place in the universe, gives us that responsibility to be good humanists and to be good conservationists as well. Thank you very much for listening, and I look forward to the rest of the panelists' views and also the participants. Thank you.
Thank you very much, AJ, for your input. You mentioned and highlighted very important sub-themes and also positive practices that we all maybe somehow should adjust in our daily lives. And I would like to now continue with our next speaker, who is from EcoSikh UK, and she is Amandeep Maan. She will be talking about the intergenerational experiences to us. Hi, Amandeep.
Hello. Thank you very much to Religion to the Peace for having EcoSikh talk today. It's a pleasure to be here. Ida will be running my slides for me. If I could have the first one, please. That would be great. So EcoSikh, I won't speak too much about us because you can find out about us on the internet, on our website. I'll give contact details at the end as well because we'd love to hear from you. But essentially, our teachings from Guru Nanak Dev Ji are about nature being everything. You know, we're all interconnected. That one light that's within each and every living being, it needs to be recognized. So we do a lot of work about that. Next slide, please. As a Sikh growing up in the UK, I was born here. I always kind of saw these kind of pictures. The top one is Guru Nanak Dev Ji. You can see he's farming, and it was a very kind of simple, modern way of farming. Organic, as we would call it now, which probably wasn't the term back then. And Guru Har Rai Ji, our seventh Guru, is seen there planting trees. And he recognized the medicinal properties of herbs and plants, had animal sanctuaries. So Sikhs have got teachings in our scriptures about nature, inspired by our gurus, and even until modern day, kind of 1902 till 1992, a really, really special person, Bhagat Puran Singh, did a lot of work on environmental kind of topics and issues, but the names are different. So the topic might be environmental, but it wasn't given that name. So when we talk about it today as the youth or, you know, other generations, we might not have the same words that connect everything, but when we look into what was happening, it was essentially the same. Next slide, please. So EcoSikh are continuing the teachings of our Sikh gurus, and we work with a lot of different faiths, or people who don't even maybe have a faith, you know, they don't belong to any particular recognized kind of system. We want to work with everyone. We do canal river cleanups, tree planting. There's a children's picture at the bottom where it was a Gurdwara, place of worship in Derby that went plastic free. So that was really exciting. But we've got a lot of projects, and if anyone's interested, please do get in touch. Next slide, please. I'm whizzing through them because of time. So the farmers' protest is what I would like to kind of touch on today, because the farmers' protest that happened in Punjab, in India at the moment, it's been happening for some time now. But I remember in the UK, Canada, America, people getting together, talking about it, saying, actually, our families come from kind of farming backgrounds, for Sikh, Punjabi, but it's so much more than a Sikh thing. You know, the farmers' protest, I won't talk about it too much now. You can always kind of have a look into that. But essentially, the way the land provides for us and how we treat it, it's so fundamental to farmers' ways of life. And so I love these pictures of kind of things that I've seen on social media, and it was the youth kind of movement that was putting these up. One of them said that for those that think it's a Sikh thing, it's a gorgeous picture. I love that one because it's showing people of different faiths praying together for the same cause. And we've got a picture to the right there, which is water. You know, water is a birthright. It's something that's for everyone. And the Sikh faith is very much centered on social justice. So social justice, environmental justice links in so much. And people were talking about it more and more. So that's a picture from history and a picture from now. That it doesn't matter which side of the argument you're on, when it comes to nature, it's something that we share, shared results. Next slide, please. Out of the farmers' protest came a lot of art. And this is a picture that really resonated with me because this person on the left, it looks like it could be my granddad, you know, it could be my father. It's people in our family that kind of have that appearance. And it was a 70-year-old man that got hit by a tear gas shell. And that got converted into this beautiful artwork on the right, which shows the wound, and it shows that, you know, his beard is just flowing with nature, because that was the whole cause behind everything. That was powerful. Next slide, please. The saying here is really nice. When the roots run deep, there is no reason to fear the wind. And again, some of these quotes always go back to nature. And similarly in our scriptures in the Good Jeea, that would be the case. This isn't from there, but there are kind of quotes about nature that we hear about all the time, and when applied to life, they make a lot of sense. And that's some of the women that were part of the protest. I would urge everybody to look into Toxification. It's a film produced by Ramad Riot. She's a wonderful producer that was on our EcoSikh conference earlier this year. And she talked about the cost of rice on your plate. And it was the UK Punjab Heritage Association also do a lot of great work in bringing these kind of projects to light. That was very interesting about the Green Revolution in Punjab and what that's done to the land and farming. Next slide, please. I've spoken a lot and I've showed a lot, but I'd like to finish just with this poem. And it was written by a member of the youth, I think it was Canadian. And it really touched me, so I'll just quickly read it. Dear Kisan, Kisan means farmer. I am not a farmer, not even born where you are, yet we still connect even from afar. A bond through my ancestry, they built life from their crops. Outbuild the life I have, you deserve all props. Your culture and your value, they run so clear. Instilled in me also the main message, no fear. I sit here with my grandparents, watching the latest news. They reminisce about Kheti Bari, which is farming, a job they'd never refuse. Now you're in a battle for a right that's only yours. We're right behind you. Here, watch our support falls. For the life I have now, I give thanks to you. In the fight for your livelihood, I will stand too. And that really encapsulates where the youth have gone with the farmers' protest, as identifying with our ancestors and the sustainable ways of living that they had, and how over time things may have changed, but it's something that we need to talk about. We need to get those interviews with our grandparents about the ways that they used to live that were sustainable and that we can learn from them. So I'm sorry if I've gone over, but thank you very much for listening, and I look forward to seeing you all in the breakout rooms and discussion.
Thank you very much, Amandeep. That was beautiful. Continuing with a Quaker perspective now with Erin Smith. She is from a Quaker from UK, and she will talk about Quakerism and the environment to us. Hi, Erin.
My name's Erin. I'm 20. I'm a Quaker from the north of Scotland. And before I start, I'd also like to say that the nature of Quakerism encourages individual reflection and interpretation. So I'm speaking from my interpretation of Quakerism, and will mostly be referring to Quakers in Britain, because Quakerism differs so much around the world, and I've only experienced British Quakerism. So yeah. So we know that the climate crisis is caused by humans, primarily colonial humans, who have created and perpetuated and enforced an unjust way of living, which is still now based on colonial values. And it's primarily us, the post-colonial humans, that are driving the impact of the climate crisis and the suffering that it's going to cause to our planet and the humans and just any life on our planet. And Quakers have long fought for equality. It was originally a branch off from Christianity, because the belief was that everybody has the ability to access God or the light or your morality, whatever you want to call it. And it came from that belief of everybody's equal, everybody has that equal ability. And we believe that the earth and its resources are not there for us to dispose of at will. And we know that our undeniable power over nature must be used with responsibility and with reverence for life. And the fact that the lifestyle and systems that primarily those in the global north are responsible for, which are causing a disproportionate suffering to those who have contributed the least to the climate crisis, it means that many Quakers are involved in the work for climate justice because of this inequality and the way it's happening. And being a Quaker has strengthened a love and respect for our world and everything that's in it in me, but it's also instilled in me a knowledge of our individual and collective power and our responsibility to make a change. And there's a quote that I'd like to read out that's often read out in meetings. And it says, "Respect the laws of the state, but let your first loyalty be to God's purpose. If you feel impelled by a strong conviction to break the law, search your conscience deeply. Ask your meeting for the prayerful support, which will give you strength as the right way becomes clear." And I remember my mom telling me this story about how these old Quakers broke into a base where they test Trident submarines in Scotland. They unplugged all the technology and threw it out into the loch. And yeah, I just remember feeling that's what that quote means. Like, if you truly believe in something, then and you have a duty to stand up for it. And I feel like I remember knowing that there's no difference between me and them. And if there's something that I believe in that way, then I have to stand up for it. If not me, then who will? And so hearing these stories and about having to stand up for what you believe in and having that prioritized in the Quaker community, and knowing that I'd get support and the emphasis on discerning for yourself what you have to stand up for, it's all led me towards environmental justice work, starting with local school strikes. And more recently, I've been working with local groups like Transition Towns, and I'm really enjoying that, and feeling like that's where I like to put my effort into. But I'm still on a path of finding out where my strengths are and what I could contribute to the work for climate justice. But I do know that I have to take part in it. And I don't want to claim that as an organisation, Quakers are always acting in line with their responsibility. And we, as Quakers, we need to continue the work we do and more if we want to limit the impacts of the climate crisis as much as possible at this point in time. However, on an individual level, at least for me, Quakerism has strengthened and supported my acknowledgement of the responsibility that I have to stand up for what's right, regardless of the law or society. And I know my talk was short, but I only want to say what's really relevant and not repeat points, because I feel like lots of us will have interconnected beliefs. So these are what I thought were the main points for me. But there are definitely things I take for granted as I've grown up as a Quaker that other people might not be so clear on. So yeah, feel free to ask any questions during the Q&A, and I'll do my best to answer. But yeah, excited to hear what everyone else has to say.
Thank you very much, Erin. That was a very nice insight as a young individual being this passionate and ready to take action in environment-related concerns and problems that we are facing at the moment is very encouraging. I think young people can encourage other young people, and we can make the change collectively. I would like to continue with a youth group which is called #Blessed, and is a Unitarian group and is from the Unitarian Gellionnen chapels. And we are having two young ladies joining us tonight who are Laura Davies and Shulamit Evans, and they will be sharing with us the power of connection in our social and local environments. Laura is yours.
Awesome, thank you, Eda. Great. Good evening. I'm Laura, and this is Siân. It's a pleasure to be here. We as Unitarians are a community of people who take our religion and spirituality liberally. We encourage the freedom to believe in what your life experience tells you is true and what your conscience tells you is right. We don't adopt the doctrines of original sin, predestination, or the infallibility of the Bible. We attend Gellionnen Chapel, a Christian bilingual chapel, which is one of 21 in Wales. Our core values are that we believe in the power of love, the importance of connection, friendship, and building a better society. In equality for all, regardless of sexual orientation, gender identity, race, ethnicity, or faith. We believe in God, however we choose to see her, him, it, as a divine being, as nature, humanity, or as our own conscience. We follow the teachings of Jesus to love our neighbours, to treat others as we would wish to be treated. Some view Jesus as the Son of God or as a wise man alongside other inspiring spiritual figures like Buddha or Guru Nanak. Gellionnen is home, next slide please, Ada. Gellionnen is home to a loving congregation. Our youth group #Blessed was born last year as a social group for virtual games nights. With a few new members and under the leadership of Andy, we decided to partake in projects that give back to our local communities. This talk will be on what we as young people have done and plan to do to nurture the natural and social environments we encounter in our locality, families, chapel, and wider communities.
Can we have the next slide, please? Initially, we wanted to impact our social and local environments, but were restricted to the walls of our own homes. So for our first project, we chose to reach out to others, something achievable by us all. This started by writing letters to the members of our congregation who are elderly, vulnerable, and isolated. We found we had so much in common, such as a shared pleasure for the outdoors. The members in our congregation were who inspired us to think more about wildlife and nature. We ended up making connections across 3 counties in South Wales. We were granted money by different councils so that we could fund the letter writing project and hand deliver Christmas care packages to our new friends. We also donated vouchers to a local charity, Route 16, a support system for looked after young people and care leavers aged 14 to 25. Lockdown gave us the opportunity to lay a foundation for the group. We agreed that our social values were just as important as our environmental values. Connecting with people is a huge aspect of our faith. We've successfully developed a social environment that continues to grow. Next slide, please.
So just a quick update on what we're doing now. After the success of our first youth service, it's been requested to be an annual event, and we regularly volunteer to host the chapel's bi-weekly pub clubs. We've gained a new member from Bedford and plan to connect with those who are in need in her area. It's important for #Blessed to have a positive impact on the local environments of all of its members, regardless of geography. We endeavour to emphasise outdoor, COVID-safe events that do not negatively impact the natural environment, like the Mountain Mutts Walk, which reunites our social and natural environments with our 4-legged friends in tow. This maintains a community connection while combating chronic isolation. We are actively staging beach cleanups and mountain tidy-ups to reduce the amount of waste entering our waterways and tackling fly tipping in our local area. both inspired by the recent World Environment Day. By putting our team effort into improving our local environments, we are enriching the habitats of local wildlife and improving the quality of living for the people in the area. By striving to better our local environments, we are indirectly improving our social environments. And with each successful project, we're inspired to tackle more environmental issues. Next slide, final slide, please, Ida.
We are optimistic that the future of #Blessed will be bountiful in terms of environmental and social projects. We regularly liaise with the Gellionnen committee, local councillors, Unitarian organisers and local charitable organisations to get advice and support in our projects, to carry them out effectively and to be inspired for new projects. We aim to conduct more beach cleanups to extend our working radius while maintaining an emphasis on our local area. We aim to restore the Graig Hall, to rejuvenate a community hub and potentially host afternoon tea with all of our connections from the letter writing project. We are preparing for the Queen's Green Canopy in cooperation with the Woodland Trust. This is a free tree planting initiative to enrich local environments across the UK. Our group leader Andy and Gav, the Unitarian Youth and Safeguarding Officer, helped us develop a safe space for 16 to 25-year-olds and have provided our group with opportunities to grow socially and environmentally. This is our biggest social event to date, and we are delighted to share our social and environmental progress as a Unitarian youth group. Our future plans include continuing a relationship with Religions for Peace UK and International, which may bring opportunities for us to continue working on new lands with new people and continue our joy in doing our part to better our social and local environments. It's been an honour to represent our Unitarian faith tonight. Thanks to Religions for Peace for the invite, and thanks to you all for listening. Thanks to Gav and Andy for getting us to where we are today, and thanks to the rest of #Blessed for being awesome. And thanks to Gellionnen Chapel for being our biggest supporters.
Thank you very much. Wow, that's very impressive. You should be proud of yourself. Very great works has been done, and I'm really looking forward to seeing your future projects. And thank you for putting this insight, bringing this insight in today. Now I would like to continue with Shulamit. Shulamit is from Extinction Rebellion Jews UK, and she will be talking about prayer, power, and protest. How do our faith communities and identities offer us unique ways to participate in environmental activism? Shulamit, the floor is yours.
As Edda has said, I'm speaking from Extinction Rebellion Jews, and I joined Extinction Rebellion in 2018. And from the moment that I joined, sort of driven by this sense that the scale and the urgency of the climate and ecological emergency demanded new and creative ways, including civil disobedience, to generate the political will necessary to implement the changes that are needed. From the very beginning, I felt this sense that my participation was mediated through the prism of my faith, of my Jewish identity. And not being alone in that, Extinction Rebellion Jews was born. And coming from this Jewish upbringing, this Jewish background, I feel that there are some principles which are very salient, such as the sanctity of human life, the importance of seeking justice, and perhaps more subtly, but I think very importantly for what we're talking about tonight, the health of the natural world as a barometer for human behaviour. The idea that the two are linked, I think, is very present in Jewish texts in a very powerful and interesting way for us today. To cap all of that, there's always a very strong sense of human responsibility. And so it's ideas that come from my Jewish texts, such as Bal Tashchit, do not destroy, or the idea that comes from the very beginning of the biblical corpus, the idea that the Garden of Eden was given to humans to care for and to protect it. These are ideas and phrases that have gone throughout my upbringing and coloured the way I approach the climate crisis. So XR Jews brings all of that together, the Jewish kind of approach to environmental activism and the Extinction Rebellion approach to environmental activism, and seeks to bring the Jewish community to XR and XR to the Jewish community. And I think that this, sort of taking the last first, this is an example of the ways in which being part of a faith community gives you a very powerful voice to encourage change in general and specifically on the climate and ecological emergency, because the ability to talk to a group of people with whom you have this connection with, I think, enables you to communicate with people in a way that not everybody can do. And I think that part of that also comes from the fact that if you are participating in some kind of religious community, you're probably at least partly there because you think it in some way aligns with something that is fundamentally important. And I think that the climate and ecological emergency taps into that, because what could be more fundamentally important than ensuring the survival of life on Earth? So I feel that it's a very germane issue specifically to faith communities. And then I suppose there's a more practical reality in that, organized religion, as it is so called, is so called for a reason, in that there are organizations and institutions and frameworks within which, if we can execute change, if we can get these institutions to lead these changes, the effects could be very, very far-reaching because of the extent to which these institutions and organizations operate the size of the communities that they serve and communicate with. So that's one aspect of what I think that we as faith communities can contribute. Another, I think, is what we can contribute to protest specifically. And one element of that is using creative religious ritual as part of a protest environment. So, for example, Extinction Rebellion Jews led a climate Seder, a Seder being the special ritual meal that Jews hold around the festival of Passover. And we held that on the streets outside Parliament as part of the April Rebellion, as a way of participating in the rebellion in a very Jewish way. Rabbi Jeffrey Newman took the symbolic branches that are associated with the festival of Sukkot to an Extinction Rebellion protest and was arrested there. And that was such a symbolic action that I feel generated a lot of conversations that might not otherwise have happened. But perhaps the final piece of the puzzle is talking about prayer as protest and the solidarity and connections with other faiths that can afford us. So that's what I wanted to end on, because that is really why we're all here today. And when we were at the most recent rebellion, one of the most wonderful things that we were able to do was participate in the Extinction Rebellion Faith Bridge, which is the interfaith part of Extinction Rebellion, and hold a vigil outside Parliament. And just the fact of being present in prayer outside these seats of power, I think, is a very powerful statement, because, as I say, that sense of an awareness of what is most important, I think people's awareness that you are bringing that sense of priority and holding it against the realities, the political realities that we are trapped in, the disparity, I think, is very, very powerful for people to see and to think about, and I think is something that can really galvanise change. So to end on a sort of practical note, as many of you will be aware, COP26 is coming up, and I thought you might like to know that there's going to be an interfaith pilgrimage starting from London on the 5th of September, and I'll post a link about that. And I would also invite anybody who is interested in creating online prayer spaces during COP26 to get in touch with the email that I will also post in the chat. So thank you very much for having me here tonight, and I look forward to continuing the discussion.
Thank you very much, Shulamit. Thank you so much. We will continue the discussions in the breakout rooms and also when we are back for the question and answer. And that was great. I can't stop smiling. All the information being shared here tonight, they are very much informative to me, and I'm pretty sure many names are feeling the same way. Now I would like to continue with Simon Slater. He is from the FEAST, Christian Interfaith Youth Charity, and he will be talking about following Jesus and caring for the earth.
First of all, thank you ever so much for inviting me. I'm going to be talking from a Christian perspective and also from sort of experience of being part of a interfaith youth charity, being an eco champion at my church, working with young people, and also sort of, I also sort of work for an organisation called Eco Birmingham, which is originally from the Quakers. So here we go. A couple of things I want to cover. First of all, what's the big picture with Christian young people? I'm very fortunate. Someone else did the work for me. So all this will be links at the end of the presentation, which we sent round that later on. But in 2020, there was a big piece of research done at what do young Christians think about climate change in the UK. And as you can see from the slide, there's a huge amount of concern about its importance, but also the perception that the church isn't doing enough. And also some key asks from young Christians back to their congregations. And it's a really nice one there under climate activism, which talks about a young person talking about we're called to be stewards of our planet, to love our neighbours, living out these commands in an exciting way, worshipping God. And that's really the essence of the sort of Christian response. So another part of the research is really, and this might chime with some other faith groups here, they also ask young people, what makes it distinctive being a Christian and being a climate activist? How does your faith help? And we've already heard from some speakers about that. And again, there's lots of examples here. A couple of ones from my own perspective helped me. There's a one there about hope in Jesus makes activism more emotionally sustainable. It is really hard, but actually having a faith or a belief that that someone's alongside you and going to help you is really, really helpful for sustaining activism. And also the one around 0.5 I found particularly helpful. There's a really difficult balance, I think, of the brilliant stuff Extinction Rebellion done about creative activism, creative protest, but also working with others that are different from you. So this isn't exclusive to Christian faith, but it's quite interesting. That's what young people were saying was important for their faith and their activism. So bringing it back to sort of a practical example, I'm going to sort of go from the big picture down to the small, which is basically the church I go to in Birmingham. You can see it's a diverse church, 40 languages. Over a third are under the age of 18, so you've got a very young congregation. It's very diverse, it's part of the inner city, and we basically run a range of activities, worship services and community activities from buildings. So we worked, our young people and other members of the congregation said, we want to do something, what's the best way? And for us, there's a scheme called Eco Church. It's really good, it's free, you can basically do a survey and it starts saying these are the things you could start doing in your congregation. So that's what we did. We conducted an Eco Church survey, not just young people, but all the members of the congregation. So it's really important, that intergenerational bit. And this is sort of near the end now. What did we achieve by working together intergenerationally? Lots of things, but the things I would highlight, one is the governance, but it's got to be seen as something you do together, not just a few people in the corner. So actually getting a plan agreed by the church council with a budget. And also part of that process, we've now got 2 young people on our council, not just to represent environmental issues, but just to represent a third of our congregation wasn't being represented. Built it into our teaching, lots of building stuff. We don't have solar panels, but there's lots of other things you can do. One slight word of warning, it's all very well saying let's go plastic free, but please talk to the people that do all the shared lunches for hundreds of people before you do that, because quite often we're finding decisions being made, but actually, does that mean that there's more volunteers to do washing up? So you find those sort of things involving working with people. In terms of community engagement, we've done a lot of joint work with the mosque and other faith groups such as litter picks, cycle rides discussing our faith, and that's been a really positive experience of focusing on the environment in our community to do action together. So other speakers have talked about that as well. I think one of the challenges we've found is the lifestyle bit. So we're doing the teaching, we're changing stuff in the buildings, but it's how do you bring the whole congregation with you about lifestyle? What does that mean for people from very diverse backgrounds to follow Jesus and care for the environment without sort of sending people on a guilt trip? So that's a journey. That's where we are at the moment. So really interesting to find out other people's views about how they brought different members of their worshipping groups with them. Last slide, these are sort of useful resources, hopefully. If you haven't come across them before, there's something called the Young Christian Climate Network. They're also sort of doing a sort of part of this pilgrimage that's been mentioned. So that's well worth having a look at. And there's a range of other things there as well. I would just put a plug for the feast. There's something called Guidelines for Dialogue. And it's been really useful about having conversations with different people, different faith groups in a constructive manner. And I've learned lots by doing that, and delighted to be along here today to learn more. So that's a bit of a whistle-stop tour. Christians and young Christians, particularly in the UK, view this as important. We've got a long way to go with our churches, but we're getting there. And there's lots of resources, and we're very, very willing to work with others on this journey. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Simon, sharing all of the examples that Feast has done. Also, I know how passionate you are in environmental concerns and the positive practices that we can all possibly adjust in. And thank you for sharing the Christian perspective as well. Now I will share my screen again to continue with our last presenter, speaker, who is actually from our steering committee, Religions for Peace UK steering committee, and she is from the Burst the Bubble. Her name is Jeea Chadha, and she will be talking about human rights and our environment, a religious and youth perspective, just to also cover that side of environmental issues, which most of the times we do forget about it, or we do just leave it outside of the picture, but is actually in the core of the picture, the human rights. So Jeea will be talking about this tonight. Hi, Jeea.
Hi, thank you so much for the introduction. So yeah, as Eda said, I'm Jeea, and I'll be rounding up our event and talking about sort of human rights. So when Eda and I were discussing this, we thought that a great way to kind of wrap up the event would be by discussing the kind of slightly different interpretation of the word environment, which, as she's also said, in events like this is not often kind of mentioned or touched upon. And obviously that is human rights within our environment. And I think hopefully in this way, I'll also be able to talk about my faith, but also other faiths and their interpretations on preserving human rights. So as I'm sure you'll agree, a sustainable environment cannot exist without the establishment of human rights and the respect of all individuals too. I guess sustainability is not just about sort of planting trees, but it's also about preserving basic human rights for everyone. So I hope to bring this sort of topic to the fore by talking about some of the work I do with another organisation I work for. So next slide, please. Awesome. So I help lead a youth activist organisation called Burst the Bubble UK. So we're a group of young people aged 15 to 18. And as our slogan says, we are collaborating, communicating and campaigning against injustice. So we have around 40 youth across 17 different schools in the UK. And with our kind of just recent intake, this is only increasing. We've even got some ambassadors and young people all across the UK, including Northern Ireland. So currently, the kind of main bit of human rights work we do is campaigning against the treatment of the Uyghurs by the Chinese government, the crisis that's happening in Xinjiang, as I'm sure you guys have heard of. We've also done some other work on kind of anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, sexual harassment in schools, and we've done this predominantly through podcasts and infographics. But since today I want to focus on human rights, I thought I'd focus on one of our main and most recent campaigns, which is the #FreeECPA campaign. So next slide, please. So we kind of, our main campaign thus far on Uyghur rights has been called Free ECPA. So it's a campaign based around the Uyghur Ekpa Asat, who was an entrepreneur, and after coming back to Xinjiang after an entrepreneurial event in the US, he was actually sent to a concentration camp. His families and his loved ones have not been able to contact him since then. So during this campaign, we worked with his sister, Rayhan Asat, who is amazing. She is the kind of first Uyghur to go to Harvard Law, and she's fighting so hard for her brother to be kind of freed from this kind of torture that he's undergoing. So, and that's where sort of Free ECPA came about. And we wanted to fight for his freedom, but also more importantly, I guess, or not more importantly, but more achievable rather, we wanted to put a face on genocide and spread awareness of the issue. We kind of wanted to engage people and sort of engage their emotions, because I think it's very easy for us to say, oh, there's a genocide going on in Xinjiang, but what does that mean? Who are these innocent people who are being tortured just because of the culture that they follow and their religion that they follow? So our new campaign, so that was a brilliant campaign, and as you can see, what it revolved around was we had people take pictures of themselves holding up a picture of ECPA. So as you can see, 2 examples there that we had posted on our Instagram, and we got around sort of 360 people from about 20 different countries. It was amazing to see so many people come together and fight for ECPA, who's undergoing this torture. We now kind of, from there, we wanted to do another campaign based around a girl living in the UK who's actually a member of Burst Bubble UK. Her name is Dilnaz Kerim, and she is 18, so my age, and her family are being, well, the Chinese government have told her that her family don't exist on their kind of system, which is crazy because she went to visit them in 2011. She's got pictures. She can still kind of hear their voices in her mind. And now, you know, the Chinese government haven't just told her, oh, they're dead or they're in a concentration camp, but they've said that they do not exist on the system. It's mad, particularly when we kind of think that, you know, the Chinese government is so good at tracking people. And so that's sort of our newer campaign. I won't say too much about it, and I haven't put any photos because that's oncoming. So this is just sort of like a disclaimer to get involved if you see that. And we hope to be on a few news outlets with that. And obviously, if you want to support our work, you can follow us on Instagram, Twitter. We even have a TikTok, or you can go to our website and donate, or just reach out to me and, you know, we can get involved. But that aside, sort of bringing it more into religion, I think that for a lot of us at Burst the Bubble, our faith has really driven us. So kind of we actually started out as an interfaith organisation at NCS, which is the National Citizen Service, as we realised that actually there is more that unites us than divides us, and we should treat each other equally as all individuals are. And I guess the religious background that so many of our members have grown up in has meant that the values of sort of peace and equality have been instilled in us from a young age. And I guess it's that discrepancy between the inequality that we saw in our real world and our values of equality that sort of made us have this drive to do better, and made us have this drive to form Burst the Bubble, to improve kind of the crises that are going on in our society. So just to give a bit of an example, I'm a Sikh, and from my Sikh upbringing, I was instilled with this idea of kind of saints, soldiers, which is a concept said to have come from the sixth Guru, Guru Har Gobind. And my sort of interpretation of that is this idea of protecting people who can't protect themselves, fighting for the rights and freedoms for those who don't have the voice to fight with, but also fighting for yourself and sticking up for yourself, which comes from this long history, I guess, of gurus fighting for their people and fighting together. And this sort of gave me the drive personally to get into activism, to fight for the rights of myself and others, because as a Sikh, I was brought up to do just that, and I saw this awful crises going on in the world, and I had to get involved and help in any way that I could. And I know, talking to my Jewish friends who are at Burst the Bubble, I know that this topic for them, focusing on the Uyghurs, was particularly pertinent and kind of relevant for them, as it was their own ancestors only a few generations ago who were being tortured and dehumanized for their own religious identity. And that, so they too are brought up with this sort of drive to stick up for themselves and others. So to kind of wrap that up, I think that each of our religions, our faiths, our philosophies allow us a motivation and determination for peace and equality. And we've seen that with the lovely kind of talks that we've had, that of each and every sort of religion that talks about protecting our environment and all the different projects that we've done. And I think they teach us, our religions teach us to protect one another and our rights, and all the animals and the flora and the fauna. So I'm sure you'll all agree with me when I say that, you know, it's lovely to see so many different faiths sort of coming together, so many different organizations coming together and using kind of the religious drive we've been given to achieve better and achieve a more sustainable and peaceful world. So I'd like to thank you very much for today. Thank you for listening. Thank you for kind of getting involved and being engaged in all our projects. And I hope to chat more in the breakout rooms.
Thank you so much, Jeea. Now we will jump into the breakout rooms to take these discussions further. And I will see you back in the main room after 15 minutes. I hope you found the breakout rooms quite interesting and informative as well. And I'd like to now just very quickly get some highlights from each room, just to share with the rest of us.
Yeah, so we found everything obviously very inspiring. And then the conversation turned into what could our own centre do and what have we done, and we turned towards sustainable energy. And Nicole's Brahma Kumari in India has a big solar project, and they use renewable energy, and we were thinking that we could approach our own local centres to inquire if they have renewable energy, and so that faith organisations can lead the way into switching towards that, because it's solar power, I think, is the cheapest one in the world, but there's still a lot of buildings that don't use renewable energy. That's the gist of it.
Yeah, so we just talked a lot about our own work and our plans for COP26, and it was really good. We talked about #blessed and how it really led from like getting together socially to then moving on to kind of collective action, which was really inspiring, because that's actually quite difficult, I think, to do. So it was good to hear about that.
We talked about we focused on the intergenerational aspect quite a lot, how to get young people engaged generally in community groups and faith and belief groups. And we kind of compared notes on what were the special attractors. Was environment a special kind of attractive quality? And would young people be more attracted to a community group having environmental action aspects to it? As opposed to, say, other social justice or human rights aspects. It was quite a mixed picture, and that led us on to talking about the habit that generations have of passing the buck, and how to stop that chain. And even though sort of today's youth may have it as an urgent priority, by the time they're 30, 40, well, they've moved on to other things. And the importance of generating and developing that culture in youth of this holistic unity, world awareness that won't leave them as they get older. And we also talked about how having a faith or a personal Jesus or someone sort of that belief in that spirit or that soul can be an overriding factor that can sort of wash away burnout, or that can wash away other sort of materialistic temptations and that build on us as we get older, more responsibilities, have to pay the bills and things like this. And also I think we shared the importance of keeping things local, and having local achievable results and not being divorced from that and being sort of too up in the sky, divorced from actual results on the ground. If you're sort of too distant from that planning and management and things like this, it becomes a bureaucracy, and we don't want faith or beliefs to become a bureaucracy, getting between us and what we want to achieve, or us in the natural world in this case.
But I think we were really encouraged by the kind of the links that are potentially able to be made tonight and through these events, but also the potential kind of for what's there and what we're seeing emerging and what that might do in the future for kind of political will and kind of encouraging more work around the environment. But we were also then talking a little bit about the I suppose the tensions for some young people that might not feel that link between their religion and kind of getting involved in some of these things, and how actually young people working together with young people and on these issues can be a way for people to kind of re-engage with their faith or see something from a spiritual perspective. And it's maybe time to, I think, for us to kind of give people that space and encourage these spaces that are being created in events like this and this evening. And I hope that's enough.
We talked a little bit about how you can rely on your consciousness and how you can discover through your consciousness and your actions. But mainly we talked about the SDGs and how religions can use the SDGs as kind of like a basis to go off, and we just kind of went around and talked a bit about each kind of group that we were part of, and what they all had from what they all took from the SDGs, and also how you can measure goals like that and how you can keep on track of what you have committed to be doing. I think they were the main points.
Thank you so much. Please feel free to send your questions to us. It's youth.coordinator@rfpuk.org. Do we have any comments or any questions to our lovely speakers? It's been very informative evening for all of us. Yes, Karishma, please.
So it's a question to those who raise the issue of fellowship, intergenerational beliefs, communication. I think the word collaboration was used. So credit to all of you for doing that. Those are very, very important themes. In the light of all this collaboration and fellowship, is there need still for the words protest and the same similar kind of words? Can we not achieve all this good through collaboration? If anybody would like to pick up on that.
I've got a short answer, but it's the way I would respond, which is I think that I absolutely agree with you. Collaboration is fantastic, but unfortunately, I don't think that enough people collaborate, which brings on the need for kind of protesting. So if we look at some of the stuff that I'm trying to do with Burst the Bubble, how much is the UK government really listening to us and collaborating with us? Well, not much. So how do we go about doing what we want to do and do what we feel that the need to do when we don't get that vital collaboration? So I think that absolutely collaboration is important, but we still need that sort of protesting because some people don't collaborate.
you so much, Jeea. Would anyone else like to comment? Yes, Simon.
Yeah, I'm happy to comment. Working with some of our young people recently, I think I was quite challenged because it's not just about the collaboration, but it's the issue about power. And I think they said, or heard they said somewhere, that power is never, ever given away. It has to be taken. It doesn't have to be taken a violent way, but there's an issue about power and its relationship and how it's there. And if you're just passive, I'm afraid you're not going to get things. There's an issue about how to do that in a creative way. We've seen Extinction Rebellion. But I worked for the Mayor of the West Midlands when the strike happened in the West Midlands, and it was a creative protest of young activists causing civil disobedience, raising the agenda, which meant I could get them in the room with the Mayor, and then that led to an agreement of a target, which we're now trying to do in the West Midlands. So I think you have to find creative ways of protesting and creative ways of asking for power.
Thank you, Simon.
Yeah, thank you very much for that question, Karishma. It's a really good one because the youth of today want peace as much as anything. You know, that they see so much going on around the world. But also it's about feeling like you're doing something. So much of the time we are away from these immediate things that are happening that are damaging. So the only way we feel like we can contribute or show support, money is it's not tangible, is it? Kind of like you give it and you don't know where it's gone exactly. Coming out in protest and coming out and saying, this is me, I support this, it's bigger than kind of any donation to some extent. It's that ownership and self-identity is a big thing right now. Youth, especially with social media on their profiles and their likes and dislikes, and it's a big thing. What are you about? And what protests you support and how you support them says a lot about you as a person and maybe your character. But it's a very, very dangerous area as well. You know, I think we could have a whole separate talk, Ida, on this in future, part 3. You know, what is the role of people in protest? You know, some people want to be part of it, but not too involved. There's a fear of being associated with certain types of protest and what people will then think of you. So, yeah, it's a huge topic, but I'm glad you brought it up.
Thank you, Amandeep. I would like to continue with #blessed.
Yeah, so we basically echoing what everyone has said before us, but looking at on a local level with our group specifically, we are aware, as we were saying in our breakout room, we're aware of our limitations. So with each goal, we try to stretch what we're able to do a little bit more to have a bigger impact over a larger area. But we're incredibly aware that some of the things we want to see change and some things we want to be proactive in helping changing, we have no power over. It is our elected officials who need to do that. And as I said earlier, often is the case that those in power aren't open to collaboration. I'm on the exact same side, that protest is always an option as long as it's peaceful. It's just it's an unfortunate necessity.
I hear everything that's been so constructively said today. And in the light of what's been said, this concept of collaboration, others not listening, therefore the need for some form of identity, establishment, and therefore the word protest. There's a lovely verse from the Gathas by the prophet Asho Zarathustra, the texts that are left behind from him from thousands of years ago, that I find so scientific. In that it says, questioning all matters for the sake of the growth and progress of the whole community. So there, the qualification for questioning so that there is progress for the good of all is something that I also see in all faiths and none and in science. that goes with another phrase from the Zoroastrian scriptures, which again resonates with so many other philosophies, scientific and people of non-faith as well. And of, like I say, intergenerational belief system, which is the phrase that says, listen, reflect, then decide to take action. So we listen both to the voice from within and to others, so that there is progress. And we are asked to do this, like scientists are asked to do, before each event, so that we're not measuring every event with the same yardstick. So thank you very much for those thoughts from all of you on the necessity to listen, collaborate, and then work together in a fellowship with all.
Thank you, Karishma. I think, yes.
Oh, by the way, this is my mummy here, Jeru.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. I think we are all trying our best within our communities, within our own traditions, and the word protest is a bit, there is a different understanding of it. But what I would like to say that after all this session that we had tonight, I can say that there are similarities, and the commonality is that we are all keen to do common action, which tonight's topic was environment, and under the umbrella of peace, understanding from our similarities and differences, and learning from each other and acting, taking action together in this. Thank you very much for joining us tonight, especially our speakers and also our Religions for Peace UK trustees, our steering committee, our network. I hope you enjoyed this session and found it interesting, informative. We are very grateful that you shared your precious time with us tonight. Please use the email. It can be questions or comments. I'm looking forward to receiving them. Please take good care of yourself and enjoy your evening, morning, or afternoon. We had quite international attendees tonight, which is very, very exciting for RFP UK IYN. Thank you.